building, and I think it'll be the finest ballroom of its kind anywhere in the world. A lot of people are giving it really good reviews. Some are giving it reviews without even seeing the building, because this just came out today. These pictures were just made today. This is a view of the columns as they are going to be made. They're going to be hand carved, and they're beautiful. Top of the line. There'll be Corinthian, which is considered the best, most beautiful by far.
Corinthian? Roberto Montalban. Talking about fine Corinthian.
President Trump last night on Air Force One talking about his ballroom.
Finest Corinthian.
It comes as gas prices continue to hover around $4 a gallon nationally. And TSA agents have gone without pay for weeks, while travelers wait in hours-long lines at several airports across the country. Meanwhile, there is new reporting this morning from The Economist that Iran is now earning nearly twice as much from oil sales each day than it was before the war started. And the Department of Defense is reportedly preparing for potential ground operations in Iran that could last 4 weeks. So before we launch, Joe, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Talking about the ballroom project, when there is the potential for a ground invasion in Iran.
Right.
Can you make sense of it?
Oh, I think so. I think the president is focused on his legacy, what he considers to be his legacy. And he will always tell you he's a builder. And so he wants to remake the White House. So 100 years from now, he hasn't told me this.
I think the war in Iran will be his legacy, depending on where it goes, not columns.
You and I know that.
Just saying.
You asked me, though, what's he thinking? And what he's thinking is what his legacy is going to be. And he sees that, I think, in remaking the White House, that ginormous arch that he's talking about building.
The arch.
The Kennedy Center, getting his name on the Kennedy Center. He's signing, I guess he's signing dollar bills now, which no president has ever done before. Okay. And along with that, David Ignatius, is very clear. This is a president who is, in part, an expansionist president in the way we really have not seen since maybe Teddy Roosevelt. The reason why is, along with his legacy and what he builds in Washington, D.C., he sees Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran as parts of his legacy. If he can flip and Syria already flipped, if those 4 countries can be flipped, then the president feels like that is a lasting legacy of his.
So, Joe, in his first year, there's no question that Donald Trump had some extraordinary successes in foreign policy, ones that were to many unexpected. Certainly the skill and success in Venezuela made the president think that U.S. military forces led by him were almost invincible. The one thing that I'm struck by as I look at this administration is that the responsibility a president has to surround himself with people who will give him good advice, which sometimes means, sir, don't do it. Sir, you need to think about that another time. He really has not succeeded in doing. You look at a cabinet meeting, he's surrounded by flatterers, people who just go on and on. Mr. President, you're so wonderful. Oh, you did these great. And that's not what a successful president needs. He needs people who challenge him, who ask hard questions, who say, sir, Iran isn't Venezuela. You've got to rethink that. And so every president wants to build a legacy. I think Trump defaults to these things he feels confident about, like building a new ballroom at a time when he needs to be thinking about building a stable platform in the Middle East to accomplish his goals. No. But again, this question of having the people around you who can help you succeed, I think that's not been a successful part of his presidency.
Yeah, Mika, whenever I talk to somebody who wants to run for office, and I've been doing it now for 30 years, since I got elected at a young age, one of the first questions I ask is, who are you going to have around you that can tell you no? if you don't have somebody around you that can tell you no, and tell you you're making a bad mistake. And I certainly had that. If you all think, I'm sure of myself, at 62, you should have seen me at 31. But even then, Kathy's laughing, but even then, I had a rule. I had 2 or 3 people around me, and if they said no, I had to convince them,
right,
or I didn't move forward with it. And sometimes it made young Joe very angry. I would grouse, why can't they see the wisdom in this?
Right.
But time and time again, they protected me from myself. We negotiated it, rounded off the rough edges of what I was thinking about doing, gave me more time, and I did it well. So I bring that up just to say, any person who comes to me that wants to be a leader, whether it's in politics, whether it's in business, whether it's in sports, I always say the same thing. Okay, you need to do A, B. You got to get up earlier than everybody else does. You got to go to sleep later. You got to work harder in between those 2 points. But in that list of 3 or 4 things, the no man or the no woman, absolutely critical. And that's something that Donald Trump does not have in the second term. I can't watch the cabinet meetings. I can't watch the cabinet meetings because I know that not only is that bad for America, that's bad for Donald Trump. I tuned in for the last one just long enough to see Doug Burgum say they're going to build a statue of him in Venezuela.
Yeah,
and I quickly turned it off and went to the MLB Network because I just couldn't watch that again because it's bad for the president, because it's bad for the administration, because it's bad for the country. He needs 1 or 2 truth tellers in there that will say, no, Mr. President, you can't do that. And let me just say, people that try to tell me he has that,
no, he does not have that.
He doesn't, or else he would not be doing a lot of the things that he's doing. I'm not talking about Iran. I'm talking about a lot of different issues. He needs somebody in there that he trusts, respects, and can take no as an answer from.
Let me talk about Iran, because at this moment with Iran, which some would describe as perilous at the very least, you have a president with no one around him to give him any perspective at all, let alone say no and actually have an impact. A president who has never waited in a security line at the airport, never once in his life. A president who has never had to go to the grocery store or figure out how to buy a house, never once in his life. And at this moment with Iran, a president who has never served this country, and in fact avoided it because of bone spurs. And so it is a problem of perspective that some might say is the issue with Iran and this very perilous moment that we are in. We are hoping that he will have a team around him and that they can work together on understanding the history of this situation, because the president can't just say something to make it true about these negotiations. Joining the